Welcome into the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are going to react to the final day, day number 11 of San Francisco 49ers training camp. There was no fans in attendance, just the team, the PR staff, the coaches, and the media. The final day before the team jettisons off to Las Vegas to have joint practices on Thursday and Friday, leading up to their preseason week 1 game against Las Vegas on Sunday at 1 o'clock in the hot Las Vegas sun. I have heard they are moving joint practices up early to like 8 o'clock in the morning simply because it's supposed to be 106 in Las Vegas. I don't know why the Davises and whoever designed this practice field didn't put a roof on it. I don't know why you wouldn't put a roof on a place in the middle of Las Vegas in the sun in summertime. But hey, that's the Raiders are going to Raider. Today, we are going to 49er and talk about what happened at practice. Jauan Jennings roasted the crap out of Ambry Thomas during one-on-ones. Brock Purdy struggled a little bit today, and Trey Lance wasn't helped. Absences of practice. Nick Bosa, the only one, still not there. Brandon Ayuk is back off the vet day. He practiced today leading up into the joint practices on Thursday and Friday. Kalia Davis and Robert Beal Jr. had helmets and pads on today, so a good sign from them. They were doing light stretching and doing something similar to what Austin Bryant was doing before he came back. So it seems like those two guys are on their way to returning to the field, whether it's this week or it's early next week. Elijah Mitchell and Darrell Luter Jr. still doing kind of light stretching individual drills on the side as they work themselves back from injury as well. Marlon Davidson, who was hurt, I believe it was on Monday, he was back at practice today. And then Drake Jackson, someone who I pointed out and said, hey, he was hurt, don't know why, didn't get an update. He was seen walking on the sideline in street clothes in a long sleeve black t-shirt and shorts. Didn't practice today, so keep your eye on that. And also Taco Charlton, someone who I called maybe this year's Tashawn Gibson. He apparently left practice early for an unknown reason. I would assume an injury, but don't and are uncertain about the length and severity of that injury. But it was a great day of practice. It's fun to be out there when no one else can see what's going on. And it's really fun to be out there when it's literally like the stands are being taken down. If you were at training camp, you know what I'm talking about. There's no stands. And it's literally just the team on the field, the media behind them, and then the DJs out there like, let's get this thing pumping. And you're like, what's going on here? That place seems barren and empty with no fans there. It was my first day at practice with no fans, so it was pretty interesting to see how things work and just really kind of get a glimpse of how things are done when no one else can really see what's happening. It's not a game day. It's just a practice at Levi Stadium on the practice field, and it was really fun. A lot of insight, and today I'm going to bring you what I found on the practice field. And it starts off really with something insanely funny because we're watching 1-versus-1s, which basically that means is quarterback, a DB, and a receiver, right? And they're practicing their go balls and their deep routes. And Jauan Jennings and Ambry Thomas, they're lined up against each other face to face. Purdy calls hike, the ball is snapped. Purdy throws it up, and they're kind of fighting for to see who can get the ball, obviously, but they're kind of fighting for leverage, right? And the ball goes over Jennings' head, and Ambry Thomas is screaming, yeah, getting in his face and whatnot. And I kid you not, Jauan Jennings, while walking back and they're kind of cursing at each other, his exact words were to Ambry Thomas, "That's the first good rep you've had in 3 years." And Larry Kruger's next to me. I go, did you hear that? Did you hear what he just said to Ambry Thomas? Like, Jauan Jennings is point blank ruined Ambry Thomas's career and said, "You've done nothing That's your first good rep in the 3 years. And that was quite the way to kick off day number 11 and the final day of training camp for the San Francisco 49ers. There was some chippiness later as well. Ronnie Bell and George Odom, it was a running play by Lee Jordan Mason, and they were engaged in the block. And they were kind of fighting and kind of pushing and shoving. And after the play, I'm not sure if Bell said anything to him, but George Odom just took a swipe at his head and kind of smacked him across the helmet. And I said, we are getting chippy. Then even later in practice, George Odom again, along with Marcelino McCurry-Ball, they just laid out Ty Davis-Price. He was running up the middle, and it was like they put their head down, their helmet down, and they were like, you are not getting past us. It was unstoppable force meets immovable object, and it was boom. And everyone kind of paused and said, is he okay? Like, someone put that man in concussion protocol. Thankfully, he kept practicing. But it was like, okay, we were off to a literally booming start. We have haymakers being thrown. We got huge hits. We got this careers destroyed verbally by Jauan Jennings. And that was the beginning of practice. It kind of set the tone and just really told me that these guys are ready to go smack some pads, and knock some heads against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. They're ready. You can tell by how they're carrying themselves. And with no fans there, the demeanor has changed in just one practice. I won't be in Vegas, unfortunately, but if seeing how they were today, it was abundantly clear to me they're ready. They're ready to play some smash mouth 49er football against their hated rival, the Las Vegas Raiders. I do have some small observations before we get into highs and lows of the day. Danny Gray, we saw him yesterday or a few days ago when you're listening to this on the audio version. Danny Gray, he filled in for Brandon Ayuk when Ayuk had the vet day. Danny Gray had a running play today. It was one of those, that's new. You weren't showing that the previous 10 days. And I think the running game in a small capacity is where they can kind of utilize his speed if he's not going to be a viable option in the passing game or if he's not getting open. I think utilizing his speed, maximizing that attribute is going to be very important, or at least can aid this offense in the explosive plays they can have. Got about 8-10 yards on the play. It wasn't a huge gain. It wasn't like a big touchdown, but Danny Gray is getting running plays. Just one, but something that stuck out very well during camp. Steve Wilks, this man loves to blitz. I mean, let me tell you. And it's funny, too, because whenever he's asked about it, he goes, did I blitz a lot? I'm not sure. Do I? And it's like, yes, Steve, you do blitz a lot compared to DeMeco Ryans. I counted 5 blitzes today, including a couple of safety blitz, a literal all-out linebackers and safety blitz today. He was bringing the heat towards this Niners offense. It was fun and good to see. It was like, okay, they are going to be aggressive. Hufanga, Gibson, and Oliver, and Warner and Greenlaw, they want to swarm. They want to attack. I counted 5 blitzes, including one all-out blitz during practice today. Couple other things. Eric Armstead, I mean, he looks like the player that San Francisco is paying him to be again. He was hurt for a lot last year for a variety of reasons, and he finally looks like that player that you said, yeah, that's why DeForest Buckner isn't here, because we're paying you instead. He's been good the past, three seasons now in San Francisco, ever since 2019. And last year, with the injuries, took a step back. That's fine. It happens. It's football. There was a concern with the injury he had. I'm forgetting what it was exactly, but it's kind of one of those injuries that when you get older, wear and tear happens, and it could lead to missing a lot more games and missing more time. But he looks like a healthy human being again. And if you can have him and Hargrave play 16 games this year, including playoffs, it's going to be something huge. And just getting Armstead back on the field, I know you want him out there for every single game, but if he misses 2 or 3 games, it's not going to kill you, depending on who you play. But to have him out there and healthy and just knowing that it's him and Hargrave at the top of their game inside on the defense next to Bosa when he eventually signs, and whether it's Drake Jackson or Farrell or Austin Bryant, whoever it is on the other side, this defensive line is going to be incredible to watch with a all-pro in Hargrave, a all-pro level talent in Armstead when healthy, and then Nick Bosa, the reigning defensive player of the year. Like this defense is going to be scary, and Armstead is showing that his role is going to see an uptick this year. Already mentioned this next player twice. That's George Odom. He's been taking a lot of what I think many fans would expected to be Ji'Ayir Brown's reps in training camp and practice with the first team. He has looked like a different player this year. He's going to be relegated to special teams most likely throughout the season, but he's been amazing in run defense. He's been aggressive in his tackling. George Odom, for all the talk of, he's kind of a one-dimensional player in his career in the past, special team guy, all-pro this past year. I think he was second team all-pro. He looks like a thumper. He looks like someone who took San Francisco's model of swarm and the idea of hunting an offensive player to heart, because this not even, didn't even take notes about it or didn't write it down many times, but it was like, wow, George Odom has looked very strong in the first 11 days of training camp that I've seen. And you get that, like, he's a player fighting to not lose reps to a rookie that this team drafted in the third round this year. And he's showing that he's not going to lose that ground to Ji'Ayir Brown just yet. And it's really good to see from George Odom, and again, through the first, week and a half of practices. But that brings us to our highs and lows, and that brings us to our first high of the day, and that is, in fact, Ji'Ayir Brown. Ji'Ayir Brown, we talked plenty of times in the podcast this year about, he's kind of been one of those players you're told has played well by players in practices that we aren't allowed to go to. Brandon Ayuk infamously said earlier in OTA's minicamp that, he's caught 7 picks, whatever it was, and it's like, not when we're here. Today he finally got his first interception in front of the media, and it was a doozy. It was a good one. There was a deep ball thrown by Sam Darnold to McLeod, and Ji'Ayir got in front of it, picked it off. It was like, that's a great play. And you look at it and go, okay, like, that's what we're talking about here. The idea to be a ball hawk and be a playmaker and get the offense the ball back. It is a play like this that's going to get you more reps. And I think it's for him, just to get that first one out of the way, at least that I've seen, that we've seen as the media. It's a good sign for a young player who, just like George Odom, is trying to not lose reps. Ji'Ayir Brown's trying to take those reps away, and for the first time to actually see him kind of pop. There's been certain reps, certain plays where we've seen the reaction time is really strong, and had there been pads in a joint practice or a preseason game or an actual regular season game, maybe he's making a big play and forcing the fumble or having a big tackle, just hitting that hit stick, right? But to see him actually make a play, have an impact on the field today, was really impressive for the first time, and he gets our first high of the day when it comes to highs and lows. The next low, it's really tough to dive into this because it's hard to critique a rookie because, yes, you can point to the play and say, well, that's not good and this isn't good and you should have caught that ball and that's the wrong route or whatnot. But in this offense, and even on defense too, it's hard to kind of pinpoint what's going wrong. Or it's never as simple as you dropped the football. It's always something more happening behind the scenes. And for Cameron Latu, our first low of the day, rookie, I have said when we drafted him, he's vanilla as can be. I didn't love the pick. That doesn't mean I don't want him to play well. He's a tight end on this team. I want you to go out there and play well and, be productive for this offense, right? But Cameron Latu, I believe John Chapman said he has had one of the worst camps this year. And it's hard to quantify that because Matt Pryor has been pretty bad early. Guys have been cut already, and so you'd assume they've had bad camps as well. But Cameron Latu has had a very rocky welcome to the NFL, more so than Braden Willis, more so than other guys like LeBourne in the backfield, or Ji'Ayir Brown, or even Jake Moody, right? Cameron Latu has found himself on the brunt end of my negativity a lot, and a lot of that's because of the outcomes. But today, I want to understand his situation a little more and help me and you figure out what's going on here, because he dropped 2 passes today and both of them were wide open, no defender around him, including one for 20 yards downfield. Like 2 plays you have to catch. And he talked after practice to the media, and I think we kind of got some insight into how he's working through the process of being a rookie in this offense in his first ever training camp. Some of it is concerning for in his first year of how productive can he be. And he said himself, look, my brain is kind of spinning when it comes to learning the offense and getting acclimated to the NFL. Like sometimes my brain is just going a million miles an hour, and I have so many things in my head of, I have to be here and do this and that and whatever. And, learn my cut. What's my route? Where is that going to be? What's the protection here? And that can be overwhelming for a player that, don't forget, not only is in his first camp, is a rookie in the first year with the offense, he's also still learning how to play tight end, transitioning over from Alabama at Alabama to now with San Francisco. It's tough because you want to be patient, right? But I think the way he's speaking and how he's playing really is a sign that he is a project player. And I do think that if he wasn't a 3rd round pick, his performance would have him on the roster bubble. I just don't like when I see him play and I see 3rd round pick next to his name. It doesn't make sense. I didn't like the pick initially. And again, I don't mind him being honest. I want that. But to see the play, to see how he's going out there and not performing very well, and to see how he's dropping passes, to see how he's, openly saying, hey, my mind is spinning, my brain's kind of going 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm trying to figure this stuff out still. It's not very promising that he'll have an impact this year. Doesn't mean he can't have it in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. It's what a project is. But as a 3rd round pick value, and I get it's early, it's 11 days so far, but as a 3rd round pick value at tight end, I don't love that I'm hearing that. And I also do not like what I'm seeing on the field from him in the passing game. Our next high, our second high of the day, is kind of something we already talked about, is Arik Armstead. He was really good today in practice. Had multiple pressures against Spencer Burford, who isn't bad by any means, but just he was having a field day today with him. Armstead, again, is kind of back to who he has been the past few years prior to last year. His body looks rejuvenated. He feels fresh. He looks strong. He looks healthy. And I think getting him back on the field, getting the confidence back, he knows what he can do. It did suck late in the year where, you have Armstead, then you have kind of a rotation of Kinlaw, and then McGill, and then Davidson, and then, Kerry Hyder's in there in some instances. But now there's consistency next to him. And I think we are going to see a new and improved Arik Armstead, where there's going to be times where Hargrave's double teamed and Bosa's double teamed, and there are 2 guys, and he's going to be one of them that is one-on-one. He'll win that rep. He'll get that sack. He'll force a pressure, which a few days ago led to a pick. Today, that didn't happen, but he was in the face of the quarterback constantly. Arik Armstead gets our next high. Our second low of the day. It was one of those things that, it kind of creeps up on you, then it goes away. Then it kind of creeps back up on you, then it goes back away. And today it crept back up on the receivers and tight ends. I counted 6 drops in total. Ayuk had 1, almost had 2. There was a play where he was kind of juggling the football up and down, up and down, up and down. It was in his hands, in the defender's hands, and back in his hands, so almost 2 drops for Brandon Ayuk. Conley had one again. That was a problem for him earlier in OTAs and minicamp. Cameron Latu had two. Willie Snead had one. And Ronnie Bell again had one. A lot of these passes that were dropped were easy slants, comebackers, and, it's really easy passes where no defenders around you, like balls right to your hand, and just plays that you point to and go, okay, you're in the NFL. You have to make that play. And I get it. These quarterbacks are throwing 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour with the freaking football. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. But you got gloves on and you're wide open. You got to make that catch 9 times out of 10. And I prefer 10 times out of 10. But it was so bad today that Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw on the sideline were making fun of them. They were literally, chanting, "Come on, another one!" Like every drop. Like there was a portion of play where it was back-to-back drops. Warner and Greenlaw had a field day with that. I mean, they were just yelling and screaming and just hollering, having a good time of like, these guys can't catch. They stink. Like another one. And they were just cheering on the fact that their offense was faltering, which usually you don't want. You want the offense to play well against your defense when it comes to practice because you want to get better. But the fact that, like, those are reps that are almost invaluable to the defense because they can't improve an area where it's okay, it's pass defense. It's wide open receivers on slants and cuts and comebackers that are just, boom, right in the hands, back on the ground. And you're like, okay, you are ruining your quarterback's day on the stat book, which we'll get into in a minute here. But also, Ronnie Bell's had drops in OTAs and minicamp, and he's had a good training camp, but if your hands are inconsistent, it's going to be hard to play you. Chris Conley, a veteran player that's had a good camp, that's been, seen in the first team offense a lot thus far, someone who they could view as maybe a veteran practice squad stash or someone they'd maybe view in certain areas of, can take over for Jauan Jennings if he goes down sometime during the season. He's had drops in OTAs and minicamp, and now it's kind of creeped back up in a practice here. And Cam Latu, obviously, we already talked about him. Like, these are signs of players that are fringe roster players that are dropping passes. That's a bad thing. You want to catch the football, right? If you're playing receiver and playing tight end, what's your job? You're either blocking or you're catching. And if you can't do one of those, you may not get a chance to do any of it. And so for Conley and Bell and Latu, and even Ayuk today, which, he's fine. Brandon Ayuk is fine. Not worried about that guy. But the other, 4 guys, you kind of get a little concerned about when the drops creep back up to you because if it happens in joint practices, then preseason games, and if you happen to make the team regular season, okay, you lost the game because of a drop. Who knows, right? You have to be consistent. And some of these guys put together, a week of great practice. Then there comes that, the little devil on your shoulder. Hey, drop a pass here. And that kind of happened today at practice. Our last high, though, of highs and lows is veteran DBs. I already talked about him. George Odom, Mooney Ward. Just want to highlight Odom again. Aggressive, strong in the run. Tackling is efficient. Again, he is pouncing on running backs and, the short passes in the box. He's been really good in those areas. But I want to highlight Mooney Ward because he was hurt early in training camp. He said his aspirations were to be the all-pro cornerback this year. And at least for today, he looked the part. He looked like the all-pro cornerback that he was signed to be and he's trying to be this year. There was a stretch where he was locking down Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. He had a PBU today, a pass defended, and then again, it's very hard. Like the idea of a cornerback locking down Ayuk and Deebo on slants and crosses and quick outs, it's almost impossible. Like that task is Herculean. Mooney Ward was doing that today. There was a play where he just had Deebo in handcuffs, in a straitjacket, locked down. There was no chance that ball was getting past him. He batted it down, incompletion. He was just phenomenal. The way he used his hands, the way he was jamming guys at the line of scrimmage, not letting guys get out of their cuts. Like, he was really good in how he played out there today. He looked like bona fide CB1. And if we're talking in one practice, he looked like the all-pro cornerback he was hired and signed to be. And again, a really good sign for a cornerback room that has a one true leader in Mooney Ward being that today, but also young guys around him. We talked earlier, Ambry Thomas is kind of on that bubble, but, they trust him a lot. They want to see what he can be. But when Jauan Jennings is roasting you, and I would arguably, saying things that could be what the team feels, this is your first good rep in 3 years. Now, that's probably too literal, right? But I do think that for Jauan Jennings to say that, there has to be some belief that, around the team, that Ambry Thomas has not been great for almost 2 years, and he has to step up. They want him to be this team's number 4 cornerback behind Ward, Lenore, and Oliver, and he'll get that chance. I think he's been better than Womack this year in training camp, but still, like, this team at cornerback is not necessarily deep. They're young, they're exciting. They have, 2 veteran players in Ward and Oliver that, I think can get better this year. But behind them, it's a whole lot of question marks. And I think, to see Mooney Ward out there setting the example in Lenore, having a good camp, it brings positivity. It brings you, consistency with the top 3 guys. But behind them, it's a whole lot of, what are we getting today? Is Jauan Jennings, of all receivers, getting past you on a go route? I'm sorry. Out of, again, all receivers, Jauan Jennings, who is slow, should not get past you on a go route. And he had Thomas beat on that ball. It was just overthrown. So for Thomas and Womack and even Deshaun Jameson, like, this is really imperative that these 3 guys string together, 2-3 more weeks of strong practices and have a really good joint practice performance against Las Vegas leading into that game on Sunday against the Raiders. But look, it's quarterback time. Ring the bells, sound the trumpets. It's quarterback conversation time. But first, I want to remind you, use that promo code 49ers Access at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. It works on concerts. It works on any game you want to go to this year. Your first purchase, $20 discount. Use that promo code 49ers Access. Also follow us on social media, Twitter, 49ers_access, Instagram, 49ers.access for all the updates. I'm hoping to go to almost every single practice this year that's in Santa Clara. And if you want to see the updates, follow us on social media. Okay, it's quarterback time. Everyone's favorite time of the year. Everyone's favorite part of the show. Let's talk QBs. Today was kind of an unkind day towards quarterbacks because a lot of drops again. I counted 6. You could argue there was a 7th, depending on how you view one of the Ayuk plays. That was kind of a tough play, but he could have caught it. But it was, again, kind of out of his reach. It is, one of those muddy water plays, right? The quarterbacks were not helped by the receivers at all. I counted 1 drop from Brock Purdy's reps, counted 2 drops from Trey Lance's reps, then 3 from Darnold, then 1 from Allen. Again, just kind of a weird day where the stats are skewed in a negative direction, but it doesn't tell the entire story. We're going to dive into every single throw Lance and Darnold made today to kind of give you an idea and the context you desire out of what actually happened at practice. And for Purdy, his day was a little more easy to kind of define in a few plays. Purdy was 8 for 14 today with 1 drop mixed in there. But he was forcing a lot of throws that didn't need to be had. There was a play where he kind of just didn't know where to go with the football and kind of just floated it up in the air over the middle of the field, and thank God it wasn't picked off. And he was targeting George Kittle, which again, if you're going to target someone in coverage, it should be George Kittle. Big body guy, is known for his contested catches over the middle. Like that's the guy you want to target, but you're lofting a ball up over the middle. That's a danger zone. Like, we're talking Tom Cruise, Top Gun. We're in the freaking danger zone, Kenny Loggins. And thankfully, it wasn't intercepted, but it was knocked down by Fred Warner. Weird throw, bad decision, didn't like that. And later in practice, there was an all-out blitz. There was Warner and Greenline all over, just going for Brock Purdy. And again, this is a play I'm not really sure what Purdy saw. I wasn't sure if he saw the fact there was no safeties in the middle of the field, nor linebackers, and you said, I'll throw it there. I'd prefer if you're going to throw the football away, you get rid of it towards the sideline, and kind of limit the exposure of the football in the field of play. You'd rather not have a player have an opportunity to make an amazing defensive play and pick that ball off. So I'd rather, if you're going to throw the football away, get it either low and not loft it again. Both these plays were kind of floated kind of passes in the middle of the field. And again, no harm, no foul on an incompletion where no one touches it, but you don't get in the habit of that. And it happened twice in this practice. Then later, again, a dangerous throw. This was more dangerous because of the contact almost initiated, but he kind of left Christian McCaffrey out to dry. He kind of was in the pocket, looking to his right, looking to his left, and there was McCaffrey in the flat. Threw it to him, but kind of threw it behind him. And then, like, Lenore was right there. McCaffrey fell down. Had McCaffrey not fell down, or had the angle been any worse, McCaffrey may have been decapitated or broke his back. It was like, oh my God. Woo! Thank God that didn't happen. Like, it was like, this team needs Christian McCaffrey big time. Like, he is the catalyst of the offense. And to see that play, it was like, your number 2 cornerback almost killed your best offensive player. Don't do that. So 3 kind of weird plays by Brock Purdy, dangerous plays for a variety of reasons, either almost picks or just putting your receiver in harm's way for no reason on kind of a badly timed, inaccurate ball. Then there was some plays that, I counted as checkdowns. That was okay. There are plays downfield that are covered. I get that. Checkdowns aren't the worst thing in the world. They are the safety blanket of an NFL offense. Of, hey, there's nothing wrong there with taking a check down. If no one's open and your check down is Christian McCaffrey, take it. I'm okay with you taking a Christian McCaffrey check down. It's what made Jimmy Garoppolo so good last year, because he had that guy as his check down option. But today, 3 of Brock Purdy's 8 completions were checkdowns in my book. One to Dwelly. To be fair, Armstead had a pressure on him, and so I get pressure in his face, hit the check down. Later in practice again, check down to Christian McCaffrey. Oh, look what happens again. Armstead almost had a sack on Brock Purdy. So I get it. Pressuring your face, hit the check down, live to fight another day. I'm cool with that. But when half of your completions, or almost half of them, are checkdowns, it does make you kind of go, okay, like, what's going on today? Then one of Jennings happened later, but Purdy just kind of seemed like the defense was locking everything down. And again, sometimes you can only do with what the defense gives you at times. If they're playing lockdown defense, 15 yards downfield towards the boundary and nothing's there, then you kind of got to hit your checkdowns. And then that's what happened. And, it's tough to kind of, grade or kind of analyze what a quarterback does when you really can't put the complementary pieces together, whether it's Lance or Purdy or Darnold. Like, you're not saying this ball starts at the 25-yard line and you get one drive, show me what you can do with the runs and the passes and the screens and stuff. All you're seeing is like a rep or, 4 reps in a row, but the ball doesn't move. So it's kind of hard to, analyze a certain, or group of plays. But when almost half of your completions are checkdowns, is it a great defense? Probably. Now, that means defense won the day on his reps by far, which should make the offense want to come out hungrier next time they're out there. But that doesn't mean that Purdy was awful. I think he struggled today big time, but there was some really good throws he made against pressure. Again, checkdowns were happened and made during pressure, but there was a safety blitz where I think it was Hufanga was blitzing, and Armstead and Bryant were in the backfield really quick, and he found Debo in the flat for a completion for a nice gain for like 5 or 6 yards. It's stuff like that. You go, okay, that's the Brock Purdy we know. Quick reactions, avoids the pressure, finds his target, boom, 5-6 yards. Now it's 2nd down and 4. Later in practice, Hufanga blitzed again. It was a low snap. He recovered, and he found Debo, ironically, again, towards the right sideline for like 8 yards. And people criticize dink and dunk, but 6 yards here, 8 yards here. That's a first down. The drive keeps moving. Things are rocking. Your offense is rolling, right? Then you get McCaffrey involved, and things look smooth as butter. And then even later, there was probably Purdy's best play of the day was against pressure. Burford and McKivitz held up strong in pass pro on this play. Ball snapped. I mean, there's guns ablazing. Defense is coming at you. A little pressure in his face. Purdy kind of runs to his left, finds Ayuk in the bubble of the defense for about 20 yards downfield. And that was kind of his highlight play of the day. So a lot of checkdowns, but I think Purdy did show that there was kind of a mixed day against pressure. 2 balls I don't want him to throw ever again, kind of in the empty field of the defense, but then later against pressure, hitting Debo twice, finding Ayuk for 20 yards downfield in the bubble of the defense. 3 strong plays I like from him, but I would say overall he struggled. A little inaccurate on certain throws that he even completed. And so for Purdy, I would assume he would agree with me and say it was not my best day on the field. The defense kind of kicked our butt during my reps. And so you can only do what you can. If guys ain't getting open. But I do think Purdy did show some signs of, okay, like maybe you need some live reps. Maybe like those joint practices will do so much for him in Las Vegas. Getting a defense that you haven't seen yet this year, against defenders and having offensive line be tested early in joint practices is going to be a good thing for Brock Purdy to kind of get, back into the rhythm even more so than he is now. But there were some signs of, you're aggressive. I appreciate that, but maybe you don't. But there also were some good things that you can point to and say, maybe the positives in this case against pressure do outweigh the negatives where you make one bad throw, but you make pretty good ones. Okay. And so I think Purdy struggled. I think he would agree with that, if you gave him a grading scale, I'd probably give him a C- on the day, maybe a D+. But I think there was still some good amongst a lot of negative on the day for me. Really strong defensive performance. Don't forget that. A strong defensive performance. Like kudos should go to the defense. And there was even a play today that was a no huddle 4th down play. Like no huddle, 4th down, hike, get in the pocket, hits Ayuk for a 1st down, and you go, okay, like that's some NFL, like no other quarterback's doing that stuff in practice. Darnold ain't doing that. Lance ain't doing that. That was Shanahan, game decision on the line, 4th down, 15 seconds left, need a 1st down here to get a field goal to win the football game. That's what that stuff was. And Purdy made the play, got the completion. They called the imaginary timeout. Moody comes out, game winner for, 35 yards. Like there was a lot of good in Purdy today, but again, it was amongst kind of kind of gloomy, muddy, kind of a gloomy, cloudy performance by him against a really good defense today. Then there was Trey Lance. Trey Lance got the first go rounds with the 2s today, but He was the one quarterback, in my opinion, that was hampered by the receivers and tight ends dropping passes. I thought he had a very good throw to Ayuk downfield. Kind of the post route, and Ayuk it didn't hit his hands, and it would have been tough to catch, but it was in a place where only he could catch it. And I've seen Ayuk make this play before. It's kind of a 50-50 ball of like, yeah, should have been caught, probably. Could have been caught, maybe. But I thought that was a nice play by Lance, and on most days, Ayuk does make that throw, make that catch. His next play, he did overshoot Latu towards the sideline. He was wide open, just missed him for about 15 yards. Got to hit those plays. We've talked about consistency issues with Trey Lance. But then you see these things, and you see a ball get tipped at the line of scrimmage, and you go, okay, like, Trey, you're not playing well. What's happening here? You hit one check down, and what are you, 1 for 4 so far? How are you going to make up for this? And while he was trying to, back-to-back drop passes, boom, off Conley's hand on a slant route on the money, just dropped it. Two drops, one later, and you go, okay, like, this is just not your day. You're putting balls in areas guys usually would catch them. Your receivers are dropping passes, but to end the practice and to end his day of work, 3 complete passes back-to-back-to-back. McLeod on an L route towards the sideline, slant to Jennings, and a comeback to Conley. Kind of, start on a kind of a downward note to kind of ramp things back up towards the end. And we've seen that from Trey so much, and today I think was one of the days where it really wasn't even his fault. It just kind of happened to be how the practice was going, where on most days, Trey's probably 6 for 8 if this exact same practice happened, 2 days ago. He's 6 for 8 on a, big chunk play to Ayuk, and we're all saying, oh my goodness, Trey looked amazing. He looked so good at practice. He should be the starting quarterback of this team right now. But I think that today, because of receivers dropped and this, this inches off of throws and just kind of guys being I don't want to say sluggish, but kind of just having an off day with their hands, that kind of held him back and it kind of skews the stats against him. But I think Trey looked fine today. I liked what he did on the field. I think he was okay. I think today was much better than it was 2 days ago. And you can tell there's kind of this stepping back up to the plate of where he was back when he's putting together 5-6 good practices in a row. And so I'm not worried about Trey, but let me tell you this. Those joint practices in Las Vegas in that first preseason game, if he performs great or just good, here's what's going to happen. If Trey Lance performs good during joint practices in that first preseason game, the conversation of is he quarterback number 2 is not going to change. What's going to happen is it's going to be, well, he's kind of now, or he's still equal to Sam Darnold. They're still having a competition. But if Trey Lance plays bad in joint practice or even that preseason game, that conversation is going to become, see, he's quarterback number 3. He stinks. They have no faith in him. And it's going to be negative. I hate that for him. I think it's unfair to him. But what does that tell you? That this stretch of 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, this could be the most pivotal 3-game stretch for Trey Lance this offseason. Your first reps against a different defense. And I think for Trey, not that you're hoping for Darnold to fail, but you're hoping Sam Darnold against that next defense he hasn't seen before starts throwing picks. And I think this is a chance for Trey to separate himself. He tried earlier this week and failed. This is now that chance to at least, find yourself some breathing room in this competition, because if you don't, it is going to sway much more negative from national guys and even local guys in the media, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way things go And because there's so much negativity towards him, so much flack he gets, and if you struggle for the first time when fans of a different team and then fans, all across Bay Area and, all Niner fans can see you play for the first time in a year, almost a year. If you don't play well, I mean, my goodness, it'll be write him off. It's done. It's over with. Because right now, all Sam Darnold has to do is kind of coast. Sam Darnold, to win this quarterback 2 job, just has to be mediocre with a hint of that arm talent that is, top notch on this team. I hate saying that because that shouldn't be the case, but I think it is. Again, I love Trey. I want him to be this team's quarterback number 2. I still want Trey in some form to be this team's franchise quarterback because I see potential is still there with growth and reps. It's still there. But I just fear that the minute he fails, it's in Shanahan's mind, okay, this is it, your quarterback 3. Whereas if Sam's mediocre, it's kind of coasts and makes a few check down plays, makes some slants that Shanahan loves, and is on time on certain things, he wins the job at quarterback 2. But today for Sam Darnold, it wasn't his best day. I counted 3 drops, so mind you, not all his fault. I counted 1 by Bell on a drop screen. Snead dropped the football, and there was one later during his drills as well that was dropped. And so, yes, Sam, just like Trey, was kind of hampered by his offensive weapons letting him down. But on the first play that he had, Dalen Hayes, newly signed defensive end, burst through the backfield, beat Matt Pryor, forces some pressure. Not sure how much it affected what Sam was going to do, but in his mind, it was, okay, there's pressure. I am going to sling this thing 50 yards down the field and just hope and pray, do the rosary thing and hope it works out from the Catholic boy at USC. And for his case, didn't work out. Picked off by Ji'Ayir Brown. And Sam Darnold, believe this, Sam Darnold's first interception of training camp. For a guy that saw ghosts in prime time in New York, and that doesn't sound right, but that was his first pick in training camp. That started his day off and was like, oh, is it going to be one of these days for Sam? He did clean things up a little bit later. Took out the Jennings. I think he took a few sacks. I counted about 2 here. I don't like doing that. You know me, but I just think that the ball was held a little bit too long. Offensive line struggled in his reps. There was some miscommunication on a deep route to McLeod, which is funny, is that Shanahan was like yelling at Braden Willis, like, hey, do this and do that. And I was like, oh, like, welcome to the NFL, rookie. But you can tell that Sam just couldn't find a rhythm. His last throw of the day, or excuse me, his 2 final throws were actually really good of the day. He found, I forgot who it was over the middle for a nice big game, 15, 20 yards downfield, just bang on the money. Then to end his practice, hit McLeod. I believe it was McLeod. Let me see here. Snead, excuse me. Play action, rolls to his left, hit Snead, right towards the sideline, right by defender's hand, just zipped it in there. Okay, like that, like him and Trey were kind of on the same level, where it was like receivers are dropping footballs. That's not your fault. And to end, they both kind of pick things up. I do think that Sam's interception, it's one of those plays where it was kind of in the end zone, so it's a touchback, whatever. It's no harm, no foul in regards to field position. But when you have the football and you're pressured and it's like first, second down, I like you taking shots, but not that one. This ball hung up in the air and was just kind of, boo, boop, right into Brown's hands. I like Sam. I think Sam does a lot of things that Kyle Shanahan loves and does them really well. And again, if he's mediocre and just makes the easy decision, he'll be fine. He'll win the quarterback 2 job in front of Trey. Trey has to do so much more to win that job than Sam has to lose it, in my opinion, which again just sucks, but that's the way it is. But I thought today Sam was worse than Trey Lance for what it's worth. I think the pick was kind of it was one of those plays where it didn't need to happen, but it did. Similar to Purdy, where they're throwing plays in kind of a dangerous zone and Darnold got bit by it. Purdy didn't. But in this case, kind of a similar outing. Like Sam Darnold kind of had a Purdy Trey Lance day mixed together where it was kind of, this weird decision making by Purdy, and that was kind of happened with for Darnold. Then Lance had the receiver drops that finished strong, and that was kind of what Sam did towards the end as well. So when I look at it, I see Sam as right now he's the depth chart said Trey or Sam. We're still there. This is definitely a Trey or Sam competition still. I do think the drops that Sam had were a little better, and I'm comparing drops now, Jesus, but I do think the route and yes, Trey had slant out to Conley that was dropped, had 2 to Latu that were dropped. Sam's balls that were dropped were like the Shanahan kind of play that you like, if you know what I mean, like the quick stuff, the screens, the slants, the ins, the outs, the 5 yards, 7 yards stuff, whereas Trey had a ball dropped downfield. Sam didn't. Where it seems like Sam was kind of working within the offense of what Shanahan might want or ask him to do more than Trey was. But again, I hate that I have to kind of decipher and kind of analyze every single thing because it feels like every single play kind of tilts the competition one way or the other. And you're kind of like, well, what would Shanahan like better here? And it makes me feel icky and gross. I'm like, why am I discussing drop passes and how they're better than the other ones? It's a drop pass. It's bad. And all quarterbacks today were affected by that. Brandon Allen to end today's show. I had him 1 for 2. Also had a drop pass, but his drop was one where he throws it up to Isaiah Winstead. He catches it, and coming down, the DB kind of rips it out of his hands. As a receiver, you had the ball in your hands and you dropped it, albeit great defensive play by the cornerback, but you dropped it. So I think for Allen, this was very much a light day for him. And so for Thursday and Friday and Saturday, those are going to be, I think, especially Thursday and Friday, but probably more so Friday, will be a very heavy Brock Purdy day in practice. But I think Thursday and Saturday, those are going to be the Trey, Sam, and Allen days. My eyes are going to be glued to Twitter or X now, whatever it's called, to see all the beat writers tweeting about it and posting about it. And then on Saturday or Sunday, just every single play, like, what is happening? What is Trey and Sam doing? I have to know. It's like that the episode in SpongeBob where his eyes come off the screen. He's scanning the paper. That's going to be on the TV on Sunday watching these guys play. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. We are literally Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're 5 days away. I can't count. 5 days away from 49er football back on our TV screens. It has been a long off season. It's almost over. 5 more days. Cinco days until San Francisco 49ers football is back on your TV screens. 2 joint practices Thursday, Friday, and day off tomorrow and Saturday, and football back on Sunday. If there's any news, anything, roster cuts, roster construction, what are the beat writers talking about? What are my takeaways? It'll be here on the show, but also on social media. Twitter is at 49ers_access. Instagram at 49ers.access. Don't forget to use that promo code 49ers Access. Once again, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Also, use our Fanatics link down below or up above on the YouTube screen right here. I'm pointing to it right now in the corner. Use that to save yourself a little bit of money if there's a discount on the site, but also support the show. In the meantime, again, Niners football is 5 days away, 4 days if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning. I can't wait. I know you can't wait. It's almost here. It's almost like Christmas Day with the new bike downstairs, but instead of a bike, it's football is back. It's red and gold, and it's pretty and faithful all over. This has been the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett. Thank you for watching, listening. Don't forget to leave a like, share, subscribe, leave that review. And until next time, stay faithful.